In this video, I'm going to use DxO Photo Labs, DXO Viewpoint, DXO Nik Collection, and Affinity 3 to turn this dark, underexposed raw photo into this awesome final processed image. So please come along and I'll show you all the steps I use, including some pretty cool little tricks. Okay, let's have a look at what we want to do with this photo. Now, I can straight away see by my histogram up here on the left, we are underexposed. I was deliberately exposing that way so that any lightning, if it happened, would be contrasting against the clouds as they were darker. Unfortunately, didn't get any lightning in this photo, but we did get an amazing structure shot. So I think we're just going to work our way down through the global edits to start with. I'm not going to touch the white balance yet. I think I want to get the light correct to start with. Just going to hit the DxO Smart Lighting. That's going to help bring the exposure up using its smart kind of technology. So it's definitely not overexposing my highlights. It's lifted the shadows a bit. Still looking pretty dark though. I'm going to bring the exposure up. At the moment, I'm really just trying to balance things. I'll bring those highlights down, just keeping an eye on the histogram up here in the top left to make sure everything's in between. So it's going to be quite flat to start with, then we'll bring out the contrast. And speaking of contrast, I'll have a look at the light contrast curve. There's a few different base type contrasts here. Now I'm going to go with a light contrast luma curve. What this will do is bring contrast in, but not affect the saturation. This is already quite a saturated photo, and if I do a normal contrast, it's just going to increase that saturation dramatically, and I want to be fully in control of that saturation, probably more towards the end of this edit. I'm not going to use this globally, but I'm just going to have a play with the Clearview Plus, because what that's going to do is show me the potential of what's in the data. There's a lot of cloud detail there, and it's doing some nice things to the foreground. But what I'm going to do is I'll use the Clearview selectively through masks for each individual section with its own individual strengths, because I think globally it's just too strong for one section and not enough for the other. I'm going to enable the Deep Prime 3 denoise because we have lifted the shadows quite a bit. And if I hit S for the loop, we can go in and see that has now cleaned it up perfectly and there is no noise at all in this photo. I can also see that my horizon is not straight and I probably want to crop a little bit. So what I'm actually going to do, this is optional. You could just crop and rotate it. However, I do have DXO Viewpoint, which is a geometric adjustment software that DxO supply, and it allows for some pretty crazy adjustments. And I want to have a play and just see. So if I hit perspective, and this is automatic, it's instantly leveled the horizon, I can see, but I do have some pretty extreme distortion on the sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the force parallel and have a play with this. This gives me two parallel lines that I can use on either side of the photo. I'm going to use, I think, the edge of this house here as a bit of a guide for the angle of distortion. That's about right there. And then I'm going to use this tower here. So if we just line up on this tower, can zoom in, just going to just there. So what I'm telling Viewpoint is this should be vertical and this should be vertical. I'm going to hit preview just to see what it does. And that has corrected the distortion from the wide angle quite significant. Now, obviously, we are going to now need to apply that and then do a crop. I'm going to bring in just the corner there, just bringing it into, I don't need all of that foreground, do like that cloud. Somewhere around there, crop I think works quite nicely. Bring that edge in a bit. So now we have a fully distortion corrected photo, which I think is pretty cool. It's not a tool I use all the time, but I do like to play with it. And I think for this image, because the power pole here and the fence posts and everything here were distracting me somewhat. Now it's really all about this beautiful sky, and we'll do some enhancements to really bring that detail out. So that's called DXO Viewpoint, and it is something, it's not that expensive. It is something worth looking at. If you want a 15% off discount, use the code Murray Fox in the DXO DxO store. There's a link down below. All right, let's get into some local adjustments. I'm going to grab an AI mask here and select the sky. Done a pretty good job. What I might do now is, this is where I'm going to play with the clear view plus a little bit. Just slowly bring that up. So this is basically clarity. What this is doing is just bringing out some really nice detail in that sky. And here I will start to tweak the white balance a little bit as well. It is a bit too blue. Somewhere around there looks good. It did have some blue and color in it. Come down to contrast and play with that. Let's get emphasis to the darks and the lights. I like that. Micro contrast, got to be very frugal with that. It brings out crazy amount of detail. You can easily go too far and lose the nice soft lines here as well. I don't want to make it too harsh. I think that works really, really well. Next, let's grab this mask and duplicate it and then invert it. Just going to quickly rename this to ground. And now we have you can see I set it ground again. It's going to take off the last changes that we made. And I'm going to bring the exposure up a little bit. Have a look at the clear view plus again. Yep, a little bit of that. So that's just a bit of dehaze to it basically. Contrast is going to darken it down again, but it's going to start bringing out differences between the lights and the darks in this grass, which I like. Micro contrast will really punch some detail into that grass as well. And I'm going to leave the temperature where it is. I like that green, and everything was very lush and green at the moment. It's been a really good wet season. I'm going to zoom in here though. What I'm going to do is under the deep prime here. So by using masks, you can do further adjustments to the actual denoise and everything like that. And I'm just going to play with the force detail. Might have to use a loop to actually see the end result of this. Yeah, that's awesome. So that's really brought up some magnificent detail in those grasses. And I'm going to increase the lens sharpenization as well. This is all just about, this is a different way of sharpening and it works really, really well. Yeah, look at that. That's done some magnificent sharpening to all the foreground that is selected, and we're not sharpening the sky at all. So that's a really cool way and simple way of doing a bit of sharpening in DxO. Now, I do want to take this over into Affinity Photo. So I'm just going to right click, export to application, open this up in the latest Affinity 3, which is free for anyone, and export this as a TIFF file. All right, and here we are in Affinity Photo 3. I want to run this through Nik Collection and also just do a little bit of a cleanup. Okay, so I can see I've got a bit of a dust spot here. There's probably a couple more rounds, so we'll just go through, do a bit of a cleanup. So I'm going to select the in-painting brush tool, which is Affinity's really cool cloning / AI / cleanup type tool. It's not really AI, it uses some pretty nice technology. There, let's clean. So what I'm going to do, I'm just holding the space bar that changes it to a hand icon so I can scroll around while zoomed in. And I'm just going to quickly scan through looking for any other anomalies. There's something there I'm just going to clean up. And we are looking pretty good. One more dust spot done. All right, so that's cleanup. All right, so let's take this into Nik Color Effects, which is now working perfectly in Affinity 3, which is fantastic. First thing I'm going to do is the Pro Contrast filter, and I'm going to just see what the correct color cast does. It's flicking it really towards the magentas. I'm not going to do that. I do like blues and everything that I've got up in here. I'm going to add a bit of dynamic contrast, however. That's just going to bring some beautiful punch into not only the clouds, but also the ground. Yeah, that looks really, really cool. And I haven't blown any highlights, so I don't need to do any adjustment there. I'm going to put a little bit of a vignette on this. So I'm going to use the darken, lighten filter. I'm going to use the shape number 2, which is always my go-to. Not really going to brighten up the middle any. I'm really just more about the border, just dimming it down a little bit. Nothing too dramatic. It's just helping to darken down the bright part on the right here and lead the eye in. It's just going to help darken down the brightest side here and lead the eye in. Actually going to, I think, I'm just going to have a play. Now I've just really noticed that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can do a little bit more about this bright right here. I really want to focus the eye in. I don't want it drawn off to the right. I'm going to bring up a levels and curves and pull that down a touch. And then if I do a control line, drag this in there. So that's just, yeah, that's good. I like that. It's just brought that right side down a little bit, bringing the focus back into middle. Let's have a look at the saturation. Bring it up touch. This is my favorite tool for adding saturation into a photo. Does it subtly. Do I need warmth to it? I might just add a touch of warmth as well, because it was near sunset and there was a bit of light just through the back there. Okay, so this is before we came in to Nik Color Effects, and this is after, just using the filters just to add that punch in. Let's apply that. Okay, so there's a couple more things I want to do here before we finish up. First is I want to add a curves adjustment, just to, again, looking at the contrast now, I'm going to bring the shadows down a touch and the midpoint back up a bit, and look at what that's done. That's just, again, it's brought a bit more pop and a bit more contrast. Very subtle, but I do like what that did. Hasn't really played havoc with our colors at all. Okay, next, what I want to do is I want to add a bit more pop to this foreground. So I'm going to create a new pixel layer by clicking this icon here, and then I'm going to press B for my brush tool. I'm on white and I've got just a nice soft edge brush. Click once, got our brush. Now I want to warp this. So if I go to vector, new warp group, perspective, and then click on the vector section here, I can hold shift and drag from the middle to stretch it that way. Hold shift and click on this node and stretch it that way. And I might stretch it up a little bit. Well, what I'm doing is basically just creating an area that we're going to turn into a highlight. And to do that, drop the warp group here. You can see the pixel layer we created. I'm going to change its blending mode to overlay. And look what happens. It's now not white. What it is a highlight. Probably a bit too strong now, but just using it at this strength to just zoom out a bit, so more, blend it into that back, something like that. If I hit Control 0 to full screen that back in, and then the last thing to do is just play with the opacity. Somewhere around there is good. So now I've got light on the foreground leading you to that structure, and that's really cool. So I'm just going to hit pixel here, come back to the pixel layer. Yep, I really like what that's done. All right, I'm going to create a new copy of all the adjustments we've done by just hitting Control Alt Shift E. Creates a new pixel layer basically with everything baked in. I'm then going to duplicate this layer by hitting Control J. Use the Command key if you're on a Mac. And I'm going to do a bit of an autumn effect to this photo. So I just want to blur this layer. So if I go up to Pixel, Filters, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I'm just going to pick an amount of pixels where I lose the fine detail, but I can still see shadows and bright areas. No actual detail. So somewhere around there is good. Apply that. I'm then going to add a brightness and contrast adjustment layer. Clicking the adjustment button here, selecting brightness and contrast, and I'm going to drag this adjustment onto the blurred pixel layer. So now if I hit the little down arrow here, you can see this adjustment is only affecting this layer. What I'm going to do, take contrast up, adjust the brightness a little bit, and then on the pixel layer, we're going to reduce its opacity. I usually head for around 12%, but I think I'm just going to go 10% on this one. And I'm just going to check, turning it on and off, it's affect brightness too much. Because I can always just come back here, adjust my brightness levels a little bit, and that's perfect. It's just added in a nice little soft glow overall to the photo. All right, I'm going to hit the Control Alt Shift E again just to create a final pixel layer. Hold the Shift key, select all the layers, right click and merge selected. This just gives me my final layer, and then we'll save this straight back into DxO Photo Labs. And here we are. this is the final photo that we have created. We started with this, underexposed, geometrically all over the shop, not a lot of detail, and we've ended up with this, with some beautiful light, everything not distorted, and some wonderful contrast and colors. So thank you again for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this edit. Please, if you like this content, subscribe to my channel, and why not click on one of these end cards you can see on your screen now to watch another one of my videos.